Welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. I am Eric Conrad. I am a member of the Worship Associates Ministry here at the church. I especially want to welcome any visitors or newcomers to our online service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived, you are welcome here. I would especially like to call your attention to this announcement of note that regular services will resume on July 4th. Our minister is the Reverend Thom Belote. Today, Eric Bannan is preaching.
Journey that starts with Him. If you got a burden, come lay it on down. Raise up your voices as we gather around. Whoever you are, whomever you share your story. Our chalice flame burns. If your heart is broken or you've been disowned, come join our circle and turn off your phone. Whoever you are, whomever you sanctuary, guided by the light. If you hear that calling, come join the fight. Marching for justice, candles lit in the night. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however
Our call to worship this morning is taken from the Unitarian Universalist Pocket Guide. These words were written by the Reverend Rebecca Ann Parker. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, mystery abide. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting. The words for the chalice lighting come from the Unitarian Universalist Pocket Guide, and these were written by Reverend Barbara Peskin. Because of those who came before, we are, in spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream.
All right. Happy Father's Day, everyone. He was born in 1925. It's a miracle he's still alive. With all that he's been through, he's had his fun. I go by to see him once a week. But he can't walk, he can barely speak. Most of our time is spent watching TV. When summer hands it off to fall, his favorite thing to watch is NFL football. And he ain't said a word all day. When the Bears scored a touchdown, you know he smiled and looked my way. Monday'll be here soon now. Here and now I'm glad. For Sunday watching football with my dad. When the halftime comes, he takes a nap. Sunday paper folded in his lap. And I think about everything I put him through. At 15, I up and ran away. All those bitter words I can't unsay. I'm seeing him through different eyes today. I flash back on being 3 feet tall. He's in the backyard teaching me to throw that ball. He ain't said a word all day. When the Packers scored a touchdown, he still smiled and looked my way. Monday'll be here soon enough. Here and now I'm glad. For Sunday watching football with my dad. There's 12 seconds left. The nurse comes out to wheel him away. And I love you. It's all that I can say. all day. When the Bears scored another touchdown, he smiled and looked my way. Monday will be here soon enough. Here and now I'm glad for Sunday watching football with my dad. Sunday watching football with my dad.
Our reading today is taken from Jonathan Byrd's book entitled, You've Changed. The reading is entitled, Every Day. I told God that I was afraid. God asked, "What are you afraid of?" I said, "I am afraid I will not have enough." God said, "Take this and you will never want again." I said, "It's very small. Is this all I need?" God said, "It is." I asked, "What is it?" God said, "Gratitude."
Good morning. Welcome to my sermon, Reclaiming the Sacred in Our Day-to-Day Lives. Everybody I know has some sort of ritual in their lives. Maybe it's that first cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe it's the walk around the neighborhood with the dog. Or maybe it's reading the paper with the cat in your lap. Or maybe you don't have any pets. Maybe it's a quiet prayer as you greet the day. Or saying the rosary. Maybe you're not a morning person. Maybe watching the sunset. Or some quiet meditation at the end of the day is your thing. Some of our more sacred rituals, like the ones we do on holidays, are passed down from our parents and grandparents and even beyond that. Now, many of us grew up with rituals that were linked to ancient stories and traditions, faded with time. And I think back to the rituals that I grew up with. My parents were devout Catholics, and my upbringing was full of practices I never really understood. One example is that my parents never ate meat on Fridays. Now, the good thing about this ritual is that on Fridays, my mother made her special tuna fish tomato spaghetti sauce with angel hair pasta. This was her mother's recipe. This dish was also prepared on Christmas Eve. Now, this tradition of no meat on Fridays has long since faded into distant memory, but my wife makes the spaghetti sauce on occasion, and it's one of my favorite comfort foods. My son loves it too. Now, I looked up ritual in the online dictionary, and there were a number of definitions that had some basic stuff in common. And it kind of came out like this: a ritual is a sequence of activities involving gestures, words, actions, and objects performed in a sequestered place and according to a set sequence. Rituals may be prescribed by the traditions of a community, including a religious community. You know, that sounded a little bit rigid to me. And, you know, I was checking in with Reverend Thom as I was getting ready to write this sermon, and he introduced me to this wonderful book here, Faithful Practices, Everyday Ways to Feed Your Spirit. There's a number of examples here about, you know, spiritual, easy daily spiritual practices in different aspects of people's lives. I mean, you can get this at the UU bookstore. Now, as I read the introduction to this book, and I realized that many of the rituals in our lives are in fact spiritual practices. Now, what do I mean when I say spiritual practice? In the introduction of the book, they quote Unitarian Henry David Thoreau from his classic book, Walden. Okay, quoting here. "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, to see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not when I came time to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear. Nor did I wish to practice resignation unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck all the marrow out of life. Oh yeah, and not when I came to die discover that I had not lived. Whew. To live in a way that was truly alive, a quest, if you will." The book goes on to mention that a spiritual quest is in many ways like an artistic quest. Now, say you wanted to learn how to play guitar. Now, if you picked it up every now and again and strummed on it a little bit, you know, you might luck out into creating something interesting. But if you wanted to make progress, okay, you need to practice, like often, daily if possible. It takes discipline. Now, I know Danny Gotham's out there nodding his head. Yeah, practice every day. Pablo Casals is often regarded as the greatest cellist in history. Now, early in my musical life, one of my teachers told me that Pablo Casals practiced scales every day, even into his 90s, even after having mastered the instrument. And when asked why he still practiced something so rudimentary every day, he remarked, "I'm starting to make progress." Now, excuse me, the pandemic has changed our lives in so many ways. For many months now, we've been grieving the loss of so many of our daily routines and rituals and practices that gave our life meaning and structure. Many of us are still experiencing a great sense of loss at all our rituals and sacred practices that have been disallowed. Our Sunday in-person worship is one of the threads that holds many of our lives together, mine included. You know, I remember back pre-pandemic, my whole Sunday morning was sacred when I was coming to church. Especially when I wasn't having to preach. Just the awakening and rising when my wife and son were asleep. Saving that quiet cup of coffee on my porch, listening to the forest that surrounds my home come to life. Later in the morning, all the actions of getting ready to go to church, you know, getting cleaned up, picking out a shirt and a hat. The 25 or so minute drive in, even the walk from the parking lot was a ritual. And then being embraced by our sacred community as I enter the building, and the hunt for the name badges, and the hugs. And there's the music, the singing together, the sermon, joys and sorrows, the Shalom. And the thing I miss the most, coffee hour. So what do? How do we reclaim the sacred? How do we invent, reclaim, and explore the sacred in our day-to-day lives? I believe the fourth principle of Unitarian Universalism, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, gives us permission to do just that. Sometimes, though, we need a little nudge. Now, for me, this nudge came during a heart-to-heart conversation with my dear friend Donna Washington. She was relating a conversation in which someone challenged her celebration of Kwanzaa, claiming it was a made-up holiday. And her response was something like, "Newsflash, all the holidays are made up. Do you think they grow on trees?" Now, I carried this little nugget of wisdom around with me for a while, and I grinned every time I thought about it. Now, after my son graduated 8th grade back in June of 2020, we did a bit of traveling to celebrate, and when I got home, I looked at my calendar for July and the first 2 weeks of August, and I saw nothing. No summer camps for my son, no Susie, no Swananoa gathering, no shows, no touring. I had nothing. And it scared me. What was I gonna do? I'm sure there was plenty of stuff online, but we need something more. So what was I gonna do? Well, on the morning of the 4th of July, I decided to declare July Holy Month. Well, why not? What's more sacred than this moment right here, right now? I started thinking, how shall I celebrate Holy Month? I need a new daily ritual, a spiritual practice. I decided that I would arise at 5 a.m. every day. I'd have a quiet cup of tea, lace up my shoes, and I would walk up the driveway to my cul-de-sac up there to greet the dawn. Now, I'd gotten out of the habit of getting up early, so at first I struggled with this 0500 wake up. But after a week or so, my eyes would open automatically at 5. And as I got into the second week of my new holy month, this ritual became the highlight of my day. That first cup of tea in the morning became part of my ritual as well. I would set out my clean mug, infuser, teaspoon, and a colorful, precisely folded dish towel on my kitchen counter so it would be ready for my use. And as the month went on, I would start looking forward to bedtime in anticipation of awakening the next day to greet the dawn. I would prepare my tea set. I would clean or declutter the kitchen so it would be welcoming to me in the pre-dawn hour. Yes, cleaning the kitchen can be a spiritual practice. It's all about your intent. Excuse me. Now, sunrise is about 6 a.m. here in July. So at about 5 minutes till, I would walk up the driveway and stand in my cul-de-sac and just bask in the morning light streaming through the trees. How many of us set aside time for ourselves every day? How about every week? How many of us take a Sabbath? Now, rest is one of my favorite spiritual practices. And one of the things I miss about my 9-to-5 IT job was the structure it gave my life. I knew that every weekday at 11:30, I was going to lunch. I mean, unless the place was literally on fire, I was out the door with a book under my arm, heading for one of my favorite local restaurants. Was this a ritual? Maybe. I don't know. It gave my life structure. It gave me some time away from staring at a computer screen in a beige cubicle. How many of us intentionally make time for ourselves every day? Now, I recall a sermon by Reverend Lisa Garcia Sampson entitled "The Courage to Rest." She talks about how our first principle, affirming the inherent worth and dignity of all beings, is most often simplified to be viewed as a way in which we treat others. I love this. It's used as a basis for our social justice programs. And she goes on to say, and I'm quoting here, before being about anyone else, that first principle is about us. It is the place from which our faith unfolds. I love that. Not because we are more important than others, but the way we live in this world, the way we love in this world, begins with the way we love ourselves. One more time. The way we live in this world, the way we love in this world, begins with how we love ourselves. As Unitarian Universalists, we decide what is holy. We decide what is sacred. We, that's us, that's me, that's you. We can make our own rituals, even our own holidays. So how will you reclaim the sacred? Your life may already be filled with spiritual practices that some you may recognize, some you may not. I encourage you today. I invite you today to take some time to yourself. This week, I invite you to take some time for yourself and see the sacred in your daily life. Amen. May this be so.
Sacred spaces we are making when we gather and we sing round the campfire in a street choir. Join the circle, let it ring. Ain't that some amazing grace? The sanctuary we create.
Bring your troubles, tell your story, pass that old guitar around. Raise your voices, make it joyous. Listen for that
wail. Say, say, say. Feel your heartbeat. There's a rhythm.
There is music all around.
Find another sister or brother. Take a stand on holy ground. Ain't that some amazing grace? The sanctuary we create. To wail, see you sail. Got to wail, say, say, say. Got to wail, see you sail. Got to wail, say, say, say. Ain't that some amazing grace? A sanctuary we create. Ain't that some amazing grace? A sanctuary we create.
Each week, we hold a time in our service for sharing the joys and sorrows of our church community. This week, several members wrote to request that stones be placed for sorrows in their lives. The first stone is for Susan and Alan Spalt. They asked that we drop a stone for their good friend and neighbor, Tim Careless, who died on Monday, June 14th. Tim had been diagnosed with cancer just a few weeks ago and went downhill very fast. Tim was a gifted musician, a kind and giving neighbor, and a good friend. He will be missed. Susan and Alan asked that we keep Tim and his young daughters in our hearts. The next stone is for Doug and Joan Shire. They placed a stone for deep sorrow. They write, on Wednesday, our niece, Susie Weiss, lost a year-long battle with an aggressive brain tumor. We miss her so much. Please hold her mother, Nancy Weiss, Susie's husband, Steve, and her 4 children aged 10 through 19 in your hearts and thoughts as they struggle to deal with this loss. The next stone, Pat Smith and Susan McDaniel have asked to be placed for concern for Pat's daughter, Sarah, who is receiving intensive chemotherapy treatments in Denver for her metastatic breast cancer. She responded well to her first treatment and will be able to go home Sunday and will return for her next treatment in 3 weeks. Let us hold Sarah, Pat, and Susan in our hearts. We place the final stone for all those joys and sorrows unspoken which we hold in our hearts. Let us take a moment to reflect on the joys and sorrows that were mentioned and not, and breathe and be centered in our heart, and understand that there is a price for joy, and that is the sorrow when we lose those joys. Let us surround each of these people with our hearts, our compassion, and our love. Amen.
Hi, Eric Bannan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Maestro Glenn on the piano. We're going to do a traditional hymn, Wade in the Water, with lyrics I learned from folk singer, storyteller Reggie Harris. Wade in the water. dressed in white, wade in the water. Must be the children of the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water. Children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See those children dressed in red. Wade in the water. Must be the children that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water. Children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See those children dressed in blue. Wade in the water. They must be the ones that made it through. God's gonna trouble the water. See now, wade in the water. Wade in the water. Children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See those children dressed in black. Wade in the water. They're the ones that's never coming back. God's never trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. One more time, wade. Everybody, in the water. Wade in the water. Children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
I invite you to join with me in the words by which we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now, won't you please join with me in singing Shalom.